What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I would like to welcome you all to another edition of Wayne's Perspective, where we operate in discipline, decency, integrity, and respect. And I'm coming through with another video just for you. Today's reaction video is going to be a very interesting one, and I believe this will be my first time doing a reaction video in terms of pro wrestling. And if you've been following my channel, you do know that I've been a pro wrestling fan ever since the age of 5, so my fandom still continues. I made no secret that I am not a fan of the creative direction of the WWE, but thanks to a lot of notable podcasts and shows on YouTube, I still keep up with what's going on the low in terms of the company. And plus, they do have some wrestlers on the roster that I still like, namely Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, just to name 4. And ironically, I named the 4 that are going to be in the WrestleMania main events this year, but I digress. But again, this video is going to be on the pro wrestling front. It is going to come courtesy of a channel by the name of 20 Minute Promo. So shout out to him. When I was looking at one of his videos, which is going to be the subject of today's video, at the end of it, not only did I agree that Sting versus Undertaker as a dream match at WrestleMania was a huge missed opportunity, it got me to thinking with this question: are dream matches played out in terms of professional wrestling? And I asked that because it was not that long ago when dream matches were a big deal in terms of discussions that wrestling fans had. You even had some magazines that were in business way back when, because they would often talk about what a dream card would be if the WWF and WCW ever faced off against each other. And yes, I have my own list of dream matches that I would have liked to have seen. I'm going to name my number 1 pick at the end. Just off the top of my head, in addition to the Sting versus Undertaker match, I would have liked to have seen Bret Hart against Kurt Angle. I would have liked to have seen a big man versus little man match between Brock Lesnar and Shawn Michaels. I mean, just imagine a match like that. It would have been awesome. Off the top of my head, again, Shawn Michaels against Eddie Guerrero. I definitely would have liked to have seen Brock Lesnar against Batista. I still can't believe we never got that match. Hell, I don't think we've even gotten a Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton match. If I'm incorrect on that, y'all let me know, but I don't think we've ever seen that match. And if there has been a match between them, it had to have been before Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. But continuing on, yeah, dream matches were a big thing. Oh, and how can I forget this? I've often, within the last few years, imagined a situation where Ric Flair was in the WWF in 1989, and on an episode of Saturday Night's Main Event, there was a 6-man tag with him and the Brainbusters against the Rockers and Randy Savage. And I was thinking about that in the midst of watching one of the Saturday Night's Main Events from 1989. Get them cats 25 minutes, we would have had a classic. But at any rate, we're going to get to today's video. And like I said, shout out to 20 Minute Promo. Fair usage for his video, fair usage. I'm going to go ahead and get the screen shared now so we can get to talking about dream matches, a big missed opportunity in wrestling, etc., etc. Let's get to it, y'all.
Wrestling has had a lot of missed opportunities. Plenty of wrestlers who should have been world champion, feuds that should have happened that never did. But there's one missed opportunity that I think stands above the rest. A match that people still talk about, a match that fans talked about for over 20 years, that could have happened, that should have happened, but never did. And that is Sting versus The Undertaker. Now, the match mattered so much to fans because it was such a simple story to tell. It was the icon of WCW against the icon of WWE. 2 characters with that dark gothic aesthetic. And it was a match that fans had been fantasy booking back to the late 90s. Now, obviously, it wasn't going to happen in the 90s. Sting was incredibly loyal to WCW, and The Undertaker was incredibly loyal to WWE. They were almost like perfect antitheses to each other for their companies. They were kind of like the franchise and the franchise. Sorry for stealing your gimmick, Shane Douglas, but I think they've earned it more than you did. And obviously, with the Monday Night Wars, it was going to be completely impossible for these guys to work. But nevertheless, 2001 came, WCW in absolute shambles, got bought out by WWE, and now we're going to have an invasion. Oh my God, we're going to finally get it. Sting and The Undertaker. However, these WCW wrestlers had these contracts from Time Warner where they had the option where they could either sit home and collect a paycheck, or
Pardon me for stopping it right there. I don't blame these cats for staying home and getting that money. I mean, those AOL contracts were very lucrative, so you got a choice to either accept the buyout or take that guaranteed money and then join WWF after the fact, I would have chose the latter. I mean, those were some lucrative contracts, man.
Or they could sign with the WWE for less money than what WCW was overpaying for them, and they could come back to work. Now, as you can expect, most of WCW's top guys, Hogan, Nash, Hall, Goldberg, decided to sit this one out, and Sting was one of those people. But Sting was loyal to WCW. I don't think he was ready. But there were guys that did. They wanted to come to work. Booker T, one of them, Diamond Dallas Page, another one of them, and they had a very lackluster invasion. But Sting, he was not pleased with how WCW was represented, with how WCW was treated by WWE, and this influenced his decision where he did not want to work for WWE. And that meant we were not going to get The Undertaker and Sting.
All right, let me stop it right there. Okay, in retrospect, Sting made the right call, because had he came in with the invasion, I'm all but certain that booking wise, creatively, etc., it wouldn't have been good. And you don't want to turn Sting into something that he's not, because he comes from WCW. It also made sense because Sting against American Badass Undertaker wouldn't have worked. You had to have Undertaker as the dead man for this to work. If we would have got Sting against American Badass Undertaker, the match may have been good, but it probably wouldn't have been as good because Taker wasn't the dead man. You get what I'm saying? So the main point that I'm making here is that Sting not choosing to go to the WWF, specifically when it came to this invasion, it was a good call, because we all remember how bad that invasion angle was. The storyline was just all over the place. I mean, talk about something that the WWF completely dropped the ball on back in the day. But that's a whole nother story. A lot of people have talked about that. I've often talked about it over the years. So yeah, a missed opportunity to be sure, but Sting made the right call in not coming to the WWF in 2001 or 2002, because creatively, they would have dropped the ball. He made the right call.
And Sting, at this point, was pretty much stepping away from the wrestling business. And maybe this is just a match, a pipe dream that's just never going to happen. The Undertaker, at this point, was the American Badass. It wasn't the same dynamic that we wanted. You know, I actually heard there were talks in 2002, before all of this, where the plan, or the want, was to have Sting and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 18.
Okay, let me stop it right there again. Now, I was online at this point in terms of getting the wrestling news, and I honestly do not recall seeing that pitched as a match. If I'm incorrect on that, y'all can let me know in the comments. But in 2002, I do not recall hearing that the idea of Sting against Kurt Angle was an idea for WrestleMania 18. I just don't recall seeing that.
Which would have been interesting. Would have been a great match, I'm sure. They eventually had some great matches in TNA. But just the thought that match was actually a pipe dream and a thought like 4 or 5 years before it actually ended up happening, that's just kind of funny to me. But eventually Sting would come back to wrestling, but he would not go to the WWE. He would go to TNA. And he would become one of the franchise players of that company. TNA was an all-time high in terms of interest, in terms of match quality, in terms of talent. From Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, Rhino, Raven, Jeff Jarrett, Hall and Nash were there, Kurt Angle, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, Bobby Roode. I'm not just going to sit here and name the entire TNA roster, but it was incredible, and Sting was a part of that. So again, we have a dynamic where The Undertaker and Sting are playing for opposite teams. Sting is not going to leave TNA and go to WWE at this point, and The Undertaker sure as hell is not going to go to TNA. But they're both active, so you never know. People still had that one day, maybe this is going to happen. And that one day turned into a possibility in 2011, because Sting had to re-sign with TNA. The option was there if he wanted, where he could have left and went to WWE. And at the time, WWE was airing these vignettes on the road to WrestleMania.
These vignettes, I do remember those. And man, I was thinking to myself, okay, is it going to happen? Are we finally going to remember those vignettes? And they were elaborate, and it did have you thinking that Sting was on the way. But as he's about to get into, it didn't go down that way.
These dark, mysterious vignettes. Something was coming. I know you would assume, oh, it's probably The Undertaker, but it wasn't like apparent that it was The Undertaker. And people started to speculate that maybe this is for Sting, because Sting wasn't on TNA at the time. He was off. He didn't come back until March, I believe. However, it didn't happen.
And another thing that I want to mention, I could be wrong on this. At this point, when Sting had re-signed with TNA, I want to say he re-signed for a salary of about $500,000 a year. I don't think I've had my years off, and if that's the case, then that was a hell of a payday, man.
It ended up being The Undertaker, and we got The Undertaker and Triple H at WrestleMania 27. They continued that 4-year story that started with Shawn and Taker and then moved to Triple H and Taker. And you know what? To be fair, those matches were great, but it was a little disappointing for us fans at the time that were like, damn, so close. But again,
so close indeed.
Yes, it's just not going to happen until we got to Survivor Series 2014. Team Cena versus Team Authority. Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins are the final two for each team. If the Authority's team loses, the Authority is no longer in power. If Cena's team loses, his whole team is fired. The stakes are high. Triple H gets involved and is about to screw Dolph Ziggler with a crooked referee. And who shows up? Sting. Sting comes out. He costs the Authority, helps Team Cena win. Sting is in WWE. The impossible happened. And 2014 is a year that's interesting for The Undertaker as well.
I do remember that Survivor Series, and when Sting came out, I did pop a little bit because it's one of those things we thought we would never see. However, oh boy, let me continue.
Well, because The Undertaker lost his streak to Brock Lesnar that year, and we hadn't seen The Undertaker since. So now we have an interesting dynamic. WrestleMania 31 is closing in. Sting is signed with WWE.
Okay, I've talked about this before, maybe not on the channel, but to this day, I still think that it was a mistake for them to end the streak, because what they ended up doing with Brock Lesnar, they could have did with him anyway without ending the streak. They really missed the ball with the Undertaker streak in terms of a documentary, and I'm talking about not as the Undertaker in character, but Mark Calloway talking about his previous WrestleMania matches, his thoughts, the storylines, and all that. They missed the boat with that documentary. They definitely could have did some merchandise. I mean, they really missed the boat with the streak, but once it ended, that was it. Now, Vince McMahon, I don't want to turn this into a Vince McMahon video. I don't have any issues with Vince whatsoever, but that call, I'll never agree with that, because they shouldn't have ended the streak. That streak should have remained intact all the way up until his retirement. Now, what do you do with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30? Hell if I know. And I was watching actively at that point. I don't know who would have made a good a good opponent for Brock at WrestleMania 30. So if Undertaker wasn't on top of his game, they could have either went a different route or just not have Brock on the show at all. I mean, those are my thoughts. But here, 2014, WrestleMania 31, oh man, let's get to it, because I'm going to pause it again because I got some additional thoughts on that one as well.
The Undertaker is planning a return match at WrestleMania, and how epic would it be if Undertaker's match, his return match after losing the streak, his comeback story is against the man that everyone has wanted to see him wrestle for 20 years, Sting. But because WWE is not very intelligent, they gave us the matches that we didn't really want to see. Well, one match we didn't want to see. Undertaker, Bray Wyatt, that is a match we wanted to see. But it wasn't a match that needed to happen at WrestleMania 31. Hell, it could have happened the next year or the year after that. You only have so many opportunities where you can get Sting and The Undertaker. But they decided to go with Sting and Triple H. I promise you, nobody, and I mean nobody, if you're the one person in the comments, let me know. But I think you're lying if you say was hyped to see Sting and Triple H. Nobody.
I know he's going to offer some additional thoughts, but I just wanted to stop it right here and give mine. This Sting and Triple H match, I was not a fan of it, and I was not a fan of the storyline. I do remember that on the episode of Raw, Sting had clearly said that he was not there as a representative of WCW. He was not there for that. So then what did they have Michael Cole, and I believe JBL was on commentary too. They brought back the whole WWE versus WCW stuff. And this feud, while lackluster, was not on the basis of that at all. And I mean, the war was won. There was no reason for anybody to quote unquote get revenge on Sting. The war was done at this point, clearly done. But like I said, the storyline was not good. I did not like the match. I did not agree with them putting Triple H into this match. But again, if not The Undertaker, who would you put Sting in there against? I have no idea. And on top of that, not only did I not like the match, but then you had Triple H out there later in a suit and tie. like he didn't have a match earlier. I did not like the fact that he couldn't even be bothered to sell any effects for that match, but he had to be out there with Stephanie because they had to do that little angle with The Rock and Ronda Rousey and all that stuff. It was just a total missed opportunity here, and they really dropped the ball with Sting overall. They really did.
Ever wanted this match. This was never a match that people were fantasy booking. I don't know if this was a Triple H ego play or not, because he ended up not only facing Sting in a match we didn't want, but he beat Sting in his first match in WWE. Okay. And then The Undertaker faced Bray Wyatt, and it was a good match. Not great, but it was good. Undertaker got the win, but it just left us feeling empty because
I was not a fan of the Undertaker Bray Wyatt stuff either. And then a small comment on Bray Wyatt, God rest his soul. I was never crazy about Bray Wyatt like everybody else was. And please don't get me started on that storyline that he had with John Cena back in 2014. That whole he's got the world in his hands. Y'all remember that storyline? And they had, what, 3 matches on pay-per-view, and I think Cena won 2 of them, Bray Wyatt won 1 of them. But yeah, God rest his soul. I'm pretty sure he was a good guy behind the scenes, but I was never a big Bray Wyatt fan like that. So you can only imagine that when the match happened with The Undertaker, I was just thinking, you know, what could have been in terms of Sting or somebody else with the streak intact. But I digress.
we saw what could have happened. Not to say it can't happen at this point, but it just seemed like, wow, you just had such a great opportunity here and you blew it. But no, you wanted to do some WCW versus DX nostalgia act that nobody cared about. You had the NWO out there and DX. You just turned this into this whole Monday Night Wars thing, and it was just lame. The match itself wasn't bad, but it just wasn't what we wanted. And you know,
lame. That's all it was. And for people who were watching WCW at the time will remember that until they split off in factions where you had NWO Hollywood and NWO Wolfpack, Sting and the original NWO were enemies. To see this at WrestleMania at the time, I popped a little bit because of the nostalgia, but overall it didn't make sense.
You know what? Whatever. Sting is still with the company. Maybe the plan is we're just going to do it next year in Dallas in front of the biggest audience that WrestleMania has ever had. You know what? That's probably a good idea. But then, Night of Champions 2015, Sting challenges Seth Rollins for the WWE Championship. He goes for his patented buckle bomb spot in the corner, and Sting gets hurt. And the possibility of finally getting Undertaker and Sting at this point is basically dead. Because at this point, Sting was retired from.
Now, that buckle bomb really got under my skin because talk about a spot that was not needed at all. They could have just had a normal match now. I can't recall if they were going to put the belt on Sting or not. That I can't recall or remember, but that buckle bomb was not needed.
Wrestling now. This spot ended his career. Thankfully, not forever, because in 2020, he made his return to AEW and he got his final run there, which was great for him. He went undefeated, and it was just Tony Khan's respect for Steve Borden, for Sting, that he wanted him to go out the way he deserved after WWE completely botched it, which I think is great, and I think that he deserved that. For people saying, oh, he didn't put anyone over, brother, look at his WWE run. He deserved to have that. And he still made people look great, and he helped Darby get over huge. So don't say that Sting didn't put anyone over just because he didn't lay down for anyone. He put over lots of people in his career. But when all was said and done, The Undertaker retired in 2020, Sting retired in 2024. The match never happened, and it never will happen. And the only place it's going to happen now is if you boot up WWE 2K. You're going to have to create Sting because he's not even on the roster. And that's where you can do it. But it was a missed opportunity. There was 2 chances it could have happened, 3 chances if you count 2001, 2002 when he could have came in. But the cards just never aligned. And it's always going to be one of those what-if matches, like a Bret Hart and a Kurt Angle or a Shawn Michaels and The Rock. Add Sting versus Undertaker to that list. And this is probably the number 1. So this, in my opinion, is the greatest missed opportunity in wrestling history. But I want you guys to let me know.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. And again, shout out the 20-minute promo for that. And I'm glad he did mention that because The Rock versus Shawn Michaels, that is another dream match that never happened. But at any rate, he did make some good points about the Sting versus Undertaker match that never happened. And I do want to make one final comment before I get into what my number 1 dream match was and still is. I'm no longer a fan of AEW. I don't want to talk about that too much. Let's just say that it was the main event in that Revolution pay-per-view between MJF and Hangman Adam Page that really turned me off to a point where I want nothing to do with AEW. Don't get me wrong. They have some wrestlers that I like, but after that Texas Death Match, enough is enough. I'm done. I can give you more context about that if you want it, but other than that, I'll no longer be talking about AEW on this channel. Okay? Short of Roman Reigns jumping ship, but even then, I don't even think I would tune in even if Roman Reigns went there, but that's a whole nother story. But again, he did a good job with this. The Sting versus Undertaker match will always remain just that, a dream match, and it was a big missed opportunity because WWE clearly could have done it. I'm pretty sure Taker would have went over. It would have been a great match, maybe not a 5-star classic, but it would be something that we would be talking about for years. Just imagine the build up leading to the match, the promos, the mind games. Can you imagine the entrances as well, and that stare down in the ring? We'll still be talking about it today, but again, a missed opportunity. And also, my pick for the greatest dream match that I've always wanted to see, and quite frankly, we're never going to see it because both of these men are retired, Steve Austin versus Goldberg at WrestleMania. That's my number one pick. I would have loved to have seen it, and I think there could have been something in 2002 or 2003, but at that point, Goldberg was coming in at the latter end of Steve Austin's run, and Steve Austin wasn't the same man. So the match itself probably wouldn't have been as good as it would have been back in, I would say, 2000, 2001, somewhere along those lines. But yeah, that's my number one pick, y'all. Steve Austin versus Goldberg. And with all that being said, we're at the end of the video. If you like what you heard and you're ready to become part of Team Discipline, go ahead and hit that like button and drop some comments if you're feeling the content. And definitely let me know your thoughts in terms of this Taker-Undertaker dream match, as well as other dream matches that you may have had over the years. And last but not least, hit that subscribe button along with the bell so you're notified when I drop new videos. And until next time, my people, take care of yourselves until the next video. And also, in regards to 20-minute promo, I am going to do a reaction video to his video talking about the Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar feud and why it may not have lived up to expectations. So that one's going to be coming soon as well. Take care, y'all.